All right, thanks for staying with us for our In Focus discussion tonight on moving forward in the GOP. As you just heard, claims of harassment and bullying in the Salt Lake County GOP came to light about 2 weeks ago. We thought it was important to hear the story of the women affected by the culture there. So joining us now is Erin Preston, a Salt Lake attorney and former candidate for Salt Lake County Recorder, and Amy Winder-Newton, a council person for Salt Lake County. First off, thank you both women for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate being able to go into depth on this. Erin, let's start with you. To the level of your comfort, of course. Tell us your story. When did the harassment start? And what exactly happened?
From the first moment I met Dave on this as communications director, he began making comments about physicality, nice T&A, things like that. He also talked about a lot of other people in very graphic and sexual terms. That didn't hit me as hard as what came after, which was a lot of bullying, a lot of rapid fire. You need to do this, you need to do that, you need to say what I want you to say, you need to have this as your policy and position on things, and you need to listen to what I do, you need to follow me on everything, you can't talk to anybody that I have not reached out to. And ultimately it led up to me not having control of my website, me not having control of a lot of things, and him putting up information that was not something that I had approved and speaking for me about things that I was not okay with.
Oh my goodness. So did you tell anybody about this? And if so, how were people reacting to it all?
I did. So the campaign really ramped up in June, and those problems began immediately. I started making calls to Scott Miller and Scott Rosenbush, who were the leadership of the county party at the time, saying, you guys have assigned me to this person and this is what's happening. And within about August, I was saying, I'm an education attorney. If I had a client come to me with this list of complaints for a employee, I would be telling them to fire them for fear of a lawsuit. And I'm telling you right now that this is more serious than you're taking it, and I don't think it's just happening to me. By September, I was having much longer conversations. I had begun documenting things, screenshots of text messages and stuff, because I didn't think that they believed me. And I forwarded some of those, got no response. I tried to engage and say, this is more serious than you're taking it, multiple times, and they just didn't see it as a big deal. You know, grow a thicker skin. This is just Dave. This is just how politics is, whatever. I've been an attorney for 25 years. I've worked in construction. Yeah, I've heard all of this before, but the systematic manipulation of the message, the personal attacks, the bullying that went on was something that I've never seen before, and they just didn't take it seriously. In fact, it kind of became a blame the person who's complaining, and it wasn't just happening to me either.
That's the thing, is I think these incidences happen to so many women across the board even, and the fact that you documented this and kept saying this is serious even when people weren't taking you serious or the situation serious, I just commend you for that and for speaking up. So tell me again, you said you had documentation. You were just screenshotting these things, or how were you documenting it?
Emails, screenshots of text messages. I have quite a bit of documentation, and like I said, I began sending it to them in September because I didn't think they were believing me, and they didn't take it that seriously. In fact, well, I don't know how they took it because they didn't respond. Scott Miller didn't respond. So I escalated the complaints. At one point, they had an attorney who is with the party contact me saying that she was conducting an investigation. I gave her more of the documents. She said, well, is this everything? And I said, no, it's not. I'm not giving you everything. I want to see what you're going to do with this. I kind of feel as though Scott Miller is just trying, and perhaps Dave Robinson with him, is just trying to collect every bit of evidence that I have so that they can protect themselves from it. I want to see what you're going to do with this. Now, there are other parts of what I've documented that I don't plan to ever release because they are awful and untrue things that Dave would say almost for his own amusement about other people in the party, public officers, people this could impact families and such. And they're just not true. These are just things that Dave would say. So I'm sitting on those things. I'm never going to turn them over because I don't want to be an accomplice in the harm that they've done to people.
Wow. Okay, so Aaron came to you. How did you feel about, and what did you do, Amy?
Yeah, so Aaron came to me in the fall, and as well as one of the other candidates. And first of all, I was mad. I mean, it's hard enough to run for office. It's hard to be a female sometimes in public office, and so then for them to have these other barriers that they were having to deal with was really frustrating for me. And I had some experiences with Scott and Dave in the past where I knew what kind of things that they did, and was not that surprised that she was having these issues with Dave Robinson. I had advised other candidates to stay away from him, that he was toxic, and so you know, I was pretty frustrated.
My word. Okay, we have so much more we want to talk about. Hold that thought. We do have to take that break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion again with Aaron Preston and Amy Winder-Newton. Stay with us. And thank you for staying with us for our In Focus discussion tonight on moving forward in the GOP. Now, we want to pick up where we left off with Aaron Preston and Amy Winder-Newton. And before we go on, I do want to say, Aaron, you reached out to several people you say didn't listen to you, but then you reached out to Amy. Tell me a bit about how you reached out to her and who you reached out to beforehand.
I'm not sure I want to name all the names of the people I reached out to beforehand, but they were numerous people in the party. They were some elected officials. They were women and men, and the response I got was the same. That's just Dave. You know, toughen up, whatever. When I reached out to Amy, I was coming to the end of my list of people that I could reach out to, and when I told her what was happening, her response is, okay, this isn't okay. There is a history of this. And what she did is spectacular, and I really want to highlight it because she expended her political capital on standing up and saying it's not okay that this is being done to Aaron and to others. And for that, she took heat. So a big part of this is the retaliation that we all got for speaking out. And she didn't have to involve herself, and she did. One of the frustrations I have is that there are just not that many women in politics who could be reached out to. Lieutenant Governor Henderson was the next one, and then I was out of people to reach out to. Thank heavens Amy, Councilwoman Winder-Newton, understood how serious it was and stepped in and expended her political capital and took the heat for backing us.
I think that you touch on such a sensitive topic for many. Is you hear this, you know something's not right about it, but then you don't want to go against it because that could cause this reaction, this retaliation, so you say. So I think a lot of people, the easier route is just don't say anything about it, but there's a problem in that too.
Yeah.
Aaron, let's talk about the reaction though. Lieutenant Governor Henderson, Governor Cox, and some others came out with some strongly worded responses. How did that make you feel?
So relieved. And this whole process now of being able to have it come out, I mean, this was a very, very rough 9 months of dealing with this. And to finally have people listen to what really happened, to understand what really happened and care to know, as opposed to perhaps try and not know so that they didn't have to take action. When Governor Cox and Lieutenant Governor Henderson came out with their statement, it was just breathing a sigh of relief. It was wonderful to have people of such merit saying this isn't okay and this isn't how we're going to work in this state.
You were heard, you were seen, it's huge. Yeah, I'd love to get your reaction too.
I was just going to say, I think it's interesting too. We had women in the Democratic Party a few years ago have a similar experience. And I had even some of them reach out to me and say, you're so lucky that your leaders were willing to stand up.
Wow.
And I think that made all the difference to have these people take a stand with us. And what it did when the governor stood up, it enabled other people to feel safe standing up to support us as well. We ended up with most of the Salt Lake County Republican legislators standing with us. State Chairman Derek Brown, even though he's supposed to you know, remain neutral and stay out of the county Republican stuff, he stood up and stood with us. So there were a lot of people who felt like they could do that because we had our leaders standing with us.
Amy, real quick too, as you heard, no one was listening at first, but when you heard it right away, you responded and said, this is serious. Again, I think a lot of us need to be that person. Can you kind of talk about why it resonated so quickly and why you were willing to say this isn't right and put your name on the line for her.
Well, I mean, I always teach my kids that if you see bullies who are going after other kids, you need to stand up for those kids, and we stand up to bullies. And so I wanted to be able to do the same. And you know, when these candidates came to me, my first thing was to tell them, focus on your race. Let's just get through the election. You know, get away from these guys, focus on your race. And I said, I promise you when the race is over, I will stand with you and we will hold them accountable. And so, you know, we need more of that. We need people not only to stand up for those who are bullied, but we need other people to stand with them and believe them. And that's what we had happen when this finally came to light. And, you know, like Aaron mentioned, we endured months of harassment from these guys. I mean, I had everything from my own county party chair emailing my colleagues on the county council and asking them to investigate me for who knows what, and going out to the state auditor and asking for an investigation, and the state party to have them investigate me, and trying to do whatever they could to besmirch my name and my reputation, because they knew that I was willing to speak up against them on this, and they didn't want me to be believed.
Wow. Okay. Aaron, talk about the apology released by Scott Miller. What did it say, and was it enough?
No, it wasn't enough. He basically apologized to the executive committee for handling the complaints poorly, and I can't remember what else, for having not handled the situation well. But the reason it wasn't enough is because he has consistently denied knowing about the complaints. He has consistently denied knowing that anybody had made any complaints. In fact, at one point, right before the executive committee met, he said the only complaint we've gotten is from Amy Winder Newton. And, you know, so this is just on her. So it was another attempt to make her look bad. But at the same time, I'm like, I have sent this to multiple people. I've sent this to you 4 times. At what point is a complaint a complaint? What form is it that I have to fill out, or we have to fill out, for this to be taken seriously? And so his apology rang hollow. It was ridiculous. I think it was an attempt to retell a little bit of history by not really saying anything. And what really needs to happen, I think, is an understanding of what did happen. How was he able to hide the complaints? How was he able to hide the actions? How was he able to go after Amy Winder Newton? How was he able to go after us on all the levels that he did and not have anybody know about it?
Right. Okay, we are going to have to go back to break in just a moment. But first off, real quickly, is there any change? Is the environment less toxic there now? I'd love to hear from both of you quick.
Well, I'll just say, you know, Erin's no longer in her race, and so she's not having to deal with the county party. I do know that our executive committee is taking this seriously. They're looking at some policy changes. Scott Miller has stepped down. We hope that means Dave Robinson's now out of the picture, and we believe that there's some good things moving forward.
All right, and would you agree as well, Erin?
Yeah, there's awareness. One of the great things from Cox and Henderson and the legislators speaking was just, hey, we acknowledge that this actually happened. Hey, we acknowledge that this could be a problem. I feel like that awareness is just a huge first step.
Yes, a huge first step. All right, we are going to head to break. We will continue this conversation in just a moment. All right, and welcome back to our final In Focus discussion on moving forward in the GOP. We pick up again with our conversation with Aaron Preston and Amy Winder Newton. This is for both of you. Let's talk systemic and organizational issues. Has there been any broader discussion of where the county party may address these issues in the future?
Yes, there has, and I think there's some really good things that are happening. We've got these 2 bad apples out, and I think that was a big part of it. Now we can figure out how to heal and how to change some policies so that this doesn't happen again. I also think it's done some really good things. It's brought to light an issue that doesn't just exist in the Republican Party. It's like I'd mentioned before, the Democratic Party had their own issues. It doesn't just happen in politics, it happens in business, it happens in lots of other places. And now there's an awareness that people need to be aware of, that this is happening, and we need to stand up for people who are being bullied, and we need to be supportive. I mean, I've been getting calls from women all over the place since this came out, saying that they were really triggered and upset because it brought back memories of when they've suffered abusive situations. And I've had women calling saying, can you give me some advice on how to handle this? And I'm thinking, no, I'm not an expert here, but it's really brought to light an issue that I think faces our community and that we need to be talking about.
I agree. That's such an important discussion. I'd love to hear, Erin, your thoughts on that as well.
I graduated from BYU Law School 25 years ago. I've been seeing this for a really long time. Back then it was you're taking the spot of a man in law school. Through my career, I've been in Utah the whole time, I've encountered varying versions of this. You learn to let it roll off your back. But this was much more intense, and this was in a different way. But we do have a cultural issue here. We have a systemic issue. We have, 67 cents on the dollar. We have all sorts of issues here that are worse here than they are in anywhere else in the country. And I think the only way to improve some of those things for women, children, the issues that women are advancing frequently, is to put more women in the office, put more women at the table, put more women in a construction trailer, so it's not just one person having to say, hey, this isn't fair, but have their voices be heard and defended by others so that we can actually move forward instead of just sidelining those who say something that isn't what you want to hear.
What you want to hear, exactly. All right. And Kathleen Anderson is the only woman running for chair of the party statewide. Talk about that. Would that help the party? As you just mentioned, we need more women.
I think we do need more women. I'm always one that says you should vote for the best person, not a specific gender. But I think that the more women that we have run for offices like Erin did, the more we have an opportunity to have women have a seat at the table. I mean, there's Harvard studies that show when both men and women are at the decision-making table in business, and I think this applies to government, we get better outcomes. And so, ultimately, I think it's wonderful when we have women running, but we really just need good men and women to be willing to run, because this happened with two guys who weren't the kind of quality that we would expect in leadership. And when we have good people who are willing to step up and run, it changes that. It makes things better. And so hopefully we can get a better pool of candidates. I know we definitely have a better pool running for Salt Lake County party chair right now. And it'll be interesting because Scott Miller is saying he's running for state party chair. And so I'm hoping those delegates are reading the newspaper and watching the news and understand what we've gone through, because that would be an absolute disaster.
This discussion is so important to bring awareness to it all. You, Erin, as an attorney, do a lot of employment work. Now that you are definitely biased here, of course, but can you take a step back and talk about changes to be made? For example, when you first reported the claims, what should have happened there?
That's what I was talking about with the anonymity, with Scott being able to hide the complaints. Transparency cures so much. So if those complaints had been able to be seen and heard by more people, I think more people would have felt safe saying, hey, wait, this is happening. Whereas one of the things that I was seeing is even the women who became aware of the complaints didn't want to say anything for fear that the retaliation would come against them. Women who had these same things happen to them. There's a long history of this. I've had probably 20 plus people now say, yeah, same thing happened to me by the same guy. But they didn't say anything because they didn't want to be perceived as weak. So we've come out, we've been strong. We did everything we needed to in going through the party reporting, going to the executive committee over and over again. And in the end, we were still getting heat, retaliation, lies said about us. So we went to the press and said, no, it's really not okay. And at that point, everybody has come forward in a way that is so wonderful and heartwarming to see, because now they get it. And so going forward, I think the biggest thing is awareness. And then you can make systemic changes. I know they're looking at creating an ethics committee that would allow complaints to go to others and immediately be heard, so that one person or two or three people can't hide these things anymore. I think.
Oh yeah, sorry, keep going. I don't want to cut you off, but then I do have one last question before we head out.
Okay, I do think that there were a lot of people in the executive committee and in the party who only heard about this when we went directly to them at the very end, when they should have known before.
Right. Okay. And before we go then, in 30 seconds, if you can even summarize it all, such an important learning lesson for so many of us out there listening. What would you like to see happen here? What can we all take away from this?
Well, I would like to see more people stand up for those who are being bullied. And when you get a complaint in the workplace or, in the political arena, being willing to take it seriously and believe the people who are saying it and investigate and stand up for them. I think that's so critical.
Oh, most definitely. Thank you so much to both of you for being here. Again, we're hearing from Erin Preston and Amy Winder Newton. Thank you again for talking about this situation, that bringing awareness